Some say that the rich don't pay enough tax. Some say that the rich pay too much tax. How should we approach these questions? Should we look at the percent of their income that a person pays? Should we look at the total amount that a person pays? How do we judge the tax burden? I propose an alternative approach: the well-being burden of taxation. What impact does the tax burden have on a person's capacity to live a decent life? I like this approach because rather than dealing with numbers on a page, it addresses the practical impact of the tax burden on a person's material well-being. Sometimes this is the right approach. Ordinary people face a disproportionate tax burden in terms of the well-being cost of taxation. For an ordinary person, the tax burden can be the difference between a cold, damp flat and a warm, dry home. For an ordinary person, the tax burden can be the difference between healthy, good food and cheap, unhealthy junk. For an ordinary person, the tax burden can be the difference between having a medical checkup or having to go without. For an ordinary person, the tax burden can be the difference between accessing healthcare and having to go without. For an ordinary person, the tax burden can be the difference between fixing the car or having to rely on the bus. The tax burden places financial pressures on ordinary people that have material consequences on their well-being. Housing, healthcare, food, electricity, transport. The tax burden has major implications on all of these things for ordinary people. The tax burden can easily push ordinary people into worse material conditions. That is the reality. Ordinary people face a massively disproportionate tax burden in terms of the well-being cost of taxation. In terms of the practical toll on well-being, it is ordinary people that face the greatest tax burden by far. For a rich man, the tax burden is the difference between buying a new batch and buying a new holiday home. The tax burden might stop the rich man from getting a new jet ski or buying a new investment property. The rich do not know of the well-being burden that ordinary people face. In every practical sense, the rich face a far smaller tax burden. Sure, if we judge things by numbers on a page, sometimes they pay more. But in terms of material reality and practical consequences, it is ordinary people who pay a disproportionate price. We must remember this. This is a useful approach when thinking about this issue. It is not the only approach we should take. When analysing taxation, many factors need to be taken into account and balanced. But this should be one of them. The well-being cost of taxation is a serious issue. In my view, New Zealand needs a tax-free threshold funded by a tax on capital gains. This is a modest policy. Australia already has both of these things. People claim that these policies will make people abandon New Zealand. Yet people are already abandoning New Zealand, and many of them are going to places that have these policies. Do not fall for the fear-mongering. Tax reform is a long overdue necessity. We need to move the tax burden towards the wealthy and away from ordinary people. This will help to get skyrocketing wealth inequality under control. This will help ordinary people to prosper.